Welcome to the World Pulse Update, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In a decision that reverberated across continents, the United States Supreme Court has overturned the Trump-era tariffs, sending shockwaves through governments and financial markets worldwide. Overnight, global investors watched as billions of dollars shifted across stock exchanges, and world leaders scrambled to adjust their trade strategies. The court's ruling is not just a domestic matter, it marks a critical juncture in modern international commerce. For multinational corporations and everyday consumers alike, the stakes of this decision could not be higher. The Supreme Court's intervention in economic policy is rare, and its impact extends well beyond America's borders. Tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a wide array of Chinese goods have been a cornerstone of United States trade tactics since 2018. Now, with one stroke of the judicial pen, the playing field has changed dramatically. The globalized economy, already reeling from supply chain disruptions and inflationary pressures, must quickly recalibrate. This moment is about more than legal precedent. It's a vivid reminder that the rules governing trade are not set in stone. In the coming months, the world will see new alliances form, supply routes shift, and market dynamics evolve, all because of a single momentous court decision. The question now is, what happens next? In 2018, President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on foreign goods, sparking intense debate. These tariffs targeted steel and aluminum from China, Canada, the EU, and Mexico. The goal? Protect American jobs and national security. But other countries hit back, escalating a global trade war. The tariffs reversal ended a turbulent chapter, but new challenges remain. U.S. tariffs didn't happen in a vacuum. Global trade volumes quickly dropped, especially between the U.S. and China. From 2018 to 2020, U.S. imports from China fell by over $90 billion. Companies shifted production to Vietnam and Mexico to avoid tariffs. Tariffs raised costs for consumers and businesses, reshaping global trade. Few sectors felt the impact of tariffs as acutely as manufacturing, agriculture, and technology. American steelmakers initially benefited from reduced foreign competition, with employment in the sector rising modestly. However, those gains were offset by increased costs for manufacturers dependent on imported steel and aluminum. The automotive industry, for example, faced higher material costs, leading to price hikes and reduced profit margins. In agriculture, the effects were largely negative. China, the largest buyer of United States soybeans, slashed its purchases in retaliation, devastating American farmers. The United States government responded with billions of dollars in subsidies, but uncertainty remained high. Meanwhile, high-tech sectors saw supply chain disruptions and increased costs for essential components, many of which were sourced from China. Consumers were not spared. Analysts found that the cost of everyday items, from washing machines to electronics, rose sharply as tariffs were passed along the supply chain. While some domestic producers gained temporary relief from foreign competition, the broader economy absorbed higher prices and reduced choices. By the time of the Supreme Court's ruling, it was clear that tariffs had produced complex, often unintended consequences. The next phase will be defined by how quickly and how well industries can adapt to a post-tariff environment. The Supreme Court's review of the tariffs, actually stemmed from lawsuits filed by U.S. importers and business associations. Plaintiffs argued that the executive branch had overstepped its authority and that the tariffs violated both statutory law and international agreements. The case, after winding its way through lower courts, eventually reached the nation's highest judicial body. In a decisive 6-3 opinion, the court ruled that the president did not have unlimited authority to impose tariffs without clear congressional approval. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, emphasized the importance of checks and balances in international economic policy. The decision cited language from the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, highlighting that national security justifications must be specific and not used as a blanket rationale for broad economic intervention. The ruling is historic in its scope. It not only invalidated the Trump-era tariffs, but also clarified the limits of executive power in trade matters. While the court recognized the importance of national security, it insisted that economic decisions with global impact require legislative oversight. The immediate effect was to lift tariffs on hundreds of products, but the longer-term significance, honestly, lies in the precedent set for future trade disputes. The ruling reasserts the primacy of law over unilateral executive action, in shaping America's role in the global economy. At the heart of the court's decision was the principle of separation of powers. The majority opinion argued that the executive branch's use of Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act was just too broad. While the law allows the president to adjust imports for national security reasons, the court found that its application had strayed far beyond its original intent. The justices pointed to the lack of direct evidence that imports of Canadian steel or Chinese electronics posed a genuine threat to United States security. Instead, the administration had used the law to justify wide-ranging tariffs, affecting allies and adversaries alike. The court warned that unchecked executive authority could set a dangerous precedent, eroding the balance between the legislative and executive branches. The dissenting justices, led by Justice Clarence Thomas, argued that the president requires flexibility to respond to fast-moving global threats. However, the majority countered that such flexibility must be grounded in clear statutory authorization and subject to judicial review. Ultimately, the court's ruling emphasizes that trade policy, especially when it affects the global economy, cannot be shaped by executive decree alone. This decision will guide future administrations as they navigate the complex intersection of law, economics, and international relations. Financial markets reacted swiftly to the Supreme Court's decision. On the day of the ruling, the Dow Jones Industrial Average surged by 600 points, and global stock indexes posted gains. Companies that had faced higher input costs, such as automakers and electronics manufacturers, saw their shares rally. Meanwhile, steel and aluminum producers experienced sharp declines amid fears of renewed foreign competition. Supply chains responded just as rapidly. Major logistics firms reported a spike in orders to reroute goods, while ports on the West Coast prepared for an uptick in imports. Analysts at J.P. Morgan projected a 3% rise in United States imports over the next quarter, as companies sought to take advantage of the lifted tariffs. The reaction was not universally positive. Some United States manufacturers expressed concerns about losing the protection they had depended on for years. Global trading partners, however, welcomed the change, with the European Union and China signaling intentions to lower their own retaliatory tariffs. In the days following the decision, the world witnessed the interconnectedness of modern economies. The ruling was a reminder that in a globalized world, even a single court decision can reshape the flow of goods, capital, and opportunity. The Supreme Court's decision has set the stage for a rapid transformation in global trade dynamics. With tariffs removed, American companies are expected to expand imports, reduce costs, and potentially lower prices for consumers. Export-driven industries, such as agriculture and technology, could see a rebound as foreign markets reduce their retaliatory barriers. Yet, the transition will not be seamless. Industries that thrived under tariff protection may struggle to compete with an influx of foreign goods. Policymakers now face the challenge of supporting affected workers while encouraging innovation and competitiveness. The Biden administration has indicated plans to work closely with Congress to craft a more collaborative and transparent trade policy. On the international stage, America's trading partners are reassessing their strategies. Some will seek bilateral agreements, while others may turn to multilateral forms, like the World Trade Organization. The ultimate outcome will depend on diplomatic skill, economic adaptation, and the willingness of all parties to embrace open markets. In this new environment, flexibility and foresight will be paramount. The Supreme Court has opened the door, but the path forward will be shaped by the choices of governments, businesses, and consumers around the world. The United States Supreme Court's decision to strike down Trump-era tariffs marks a watershed moment in global economic history. By reaffirming the balance of power between the executive and legislative branches, the ruling has not only changed American law, but also reshaped the global trade landscape. Industries, markets, and governments must now adjust to a world where protectionist policies are no longer the rule. In the immediate aftermath, markets have responded with optimism, and policymakers have begun to draft new strategies. Yet, the ultimate impact will unfold over months and years as supply chains realign and new trade agreements are forged. The lessons of the tariff era remain clear. While protectionism can offer short-term gains, it often brings long-term complexity and risk. As the dust settles, one question remains: will this decision usher in a new era of global cooperation, or will it spark fresh tensions and uncertainty? The future of international commerce is as unpredictable as ever, and the world will be watching every step along the way.